Hello, everybody. This is your professional diploma in digital marketing and SEO. We are going to be looking at brand management. What we are looking at today specifically is, of course, brand management and various factors within that, followed by something called brand lift. Then we will look at digital PR, which is a core function or feature of branding and brand management. And then finally, community management, specifically looking at social. So what is a brand exactly? The initial definition was that it was just referring to the identifying visual element of a business. For example, if you think of Nike, their tick would be the brand. But it has since evolved into encompassing various aspects of a business. So what's great to do is to think of a brand as a person. Your mind is your story, so what you communicate. Your voice is how you communicate it. Your clothing is what you look like, so your logo, your packaging, your creatives. And then your limbs are all the ways that you share your story. This was less so in the past, but a brand is vulnerable to external happenings like trends and events, not to mention the voice that the internet has given the world, where we can glorify or ruin a business almost within minutes. They are also, of course, susceptible to industry changes, as well as technology changes, and a lack of transparency. And that, again, has become even more important with the digital age. If you're not transparent as a brand anymore, then people don't fall for it. And so you need to work on that. An article from Investopedia said that brands that are successful create a gap between themselves and their competitors in the minds of consumers. Generally speaking, companies in the same industry usually offer products that are 99.9% identical to the non-specialists. The difference is in the brand. A simple way to look at this is to think of industries like clothing and food. People are selling essentially the same thing. If you took a label off a cake or a pair of jeans, you wouldn't know who it belonged to. And that is why Investopedia is saying here, the difference is in the brand. Not all businesses are brands. Any business can become a brand, but it's a process that is built up over time. So let's look at the difference between branding and brand management. It's not set in stone. These responsibilities can lie with the same person or be segmented even further, but generally branding involves the conception, creation, and management of the tangible elements in a business. So what we're talking about here is the product, the look of the product, the packaging, the pricing. It's almost all the physical aspects of a brand. But then with brand management, this involves working with and improving the intangible elements, which we will go through just now in detail, like brand perception and reputation across target markets. Brand management is about establishing an emotional connection with customers, using a consistent message that is distributed in multiple ways. You are persuading your target market to purchase your product or service. If you're an existing brand and let's say a new brand management team comes on board, it would often begin with an analysis on how a brand is currently perceived in the market. So let's look at some of the intangible concepts or factors in a brand. As I said in the beginning, there are both tangible and intangible factors in brand management. Today, we are focusing on the intangible, as the tangible is less to do with our core topic, and that is, of course, digital marketing. The intangible factors of a brand have a huge effect on the performance of your marketing, and this is especially true in your paid marketing because, of course, you're spending money to get performance. But if the intangible concepts of your brand are not performing well, then your marketing will suffer. One aspect to mention, though, in terms of tangible is marketing channels. So this is, of course, a tangible aspect of brand management, and it's ensuring that your website, your organic and paid media channels, and all marketing communication are on point with the brand. And that means consistent. You can also, or you would also then have templates or shared assets that you would have to manage and make sure your team can access. First up, and I'm sure you know this already, it is awareness. We have spoken about this before, and through the course so far, we have touched on many of the aspects of branding, such as responsive sites, buyer personas and target markets, customer journeys, email communication, etc. For obvious reasons, awareness is the stepping stone to building a brand. Brand awareness is about how well your target audience is familiar with or recognizes your brand. At this point, your brand is literally, we're referring to your clothing, so your logo, your physical identity. You want people to know you by your clothing. There are two key parts to awareness or brand awareness, and that is recall and recognition. Recall is basically familiarity. We're going to look at the differences. With brand recall, it is the ability of consumers to spontaneously remember a brand's name when viewing similar products. So brand recall is where you don't have to see the brand to be able to think of it. If we look at brand recognition, this is when consumers can identify a brand upon coming into contact with it. For example, seeing an ad or packaging on a shelf. So in this case, they only are aware of you or recognize you when they've actually physically seeing your brand. Brand recall is the superior factor in brand awareness. You want people to be able to think of you spontaneously when they're viewing similar products, not only when they're actually seeing your brand. Then next up, we have value. And this is referring to the perceived value of the brand by consumers. The more someone values something, the more they are willing to pay for it. We've spoken about this before when we discussed sales psychology. As much as perceived value is intangible, there are some tangible results that you can see as a result of brand value. They are product or service expansion. Higher prices could be implemented because, of course, they're valuing you more. Higher stock price if you are that size and you are on the stock exchange. And then overall growth, because of course, if people are valuing you, if your perceived value is high, then that generally does mean more revenue. And with more revenue, you can achieve more. Then the third intangible factor is loyalty. Now, loyalty is a result of a high brand value, or as we've been calling it, it's retention. As I've said before, marketing is really only there to add on to the results that your customer service department produce. It's not a main factor in retention or loyalty, but it can definitely assist. An example of a service or something that you would do to boost loyalty would be to have, let's say, social media channels as a customer service platform and employing community managers to handle the interactions and escalate complaints from your consumers. We will be talking about this a bit later, but that is a good example. When it comes to measuring brand awareness, we have covered this previously, so we won't spend too much time on it now. But to recap, the methods to measure brand awareness would be surveys, website traffic, your paid media metrics such as ad recall, which again are only available within certain platforms, earned media value, so that is talking about any print, traditional marketing that you do, as well as any digital content marketing. Your external links, so who is linking back to you? Who is valuing enough or thinking that your content is of a high quality to be able to share it, either on social, on a blog post, on an article, etc. And brand search volume. Of course, you want to be seeing this increasing over time, especially if you're running some campaigns. It's different to website traffic. This is referring to overall website traffic. You could then segment it by organic versus paid, just to see which or where your traffic is coming from, and the traffic that is coming from your campaigns. There are many opinions on whether you can actually measure the impact that awareness has on return on investment, so the bottom line. But in many business cases, it really is just a matter of accepting that people who become aware of you may purchase from you, And then with additional strategies, you direct as many of those people as possible to the final goal. So you're bringing them further down the funnel. Something we have not covered in detail is surveys, and that is a very valuable way of getting feedback in terms of seeing how people perceive your brand. There are many different options, but first up, did you know that we have something called a response bias? This is a term for a wide range of tendencies for people to respond inaccurately or falsely to questions. It's not something that they do on purpose or they choose to do, it's completely subconscious. But what they found is that this is prevalent in structured interviews or surveys, so it's something good to be aware of. There is also something called the question order bias. And this is where someone may react differently to questions based on the order in which they appear, which I find fascinating. There's obviously a lot of information or a lot more information on this, and I encourage you to have a look at it. It is very interesting stuff. There are ways to combat this bias, namely randomizing the order of your questions. So that is something to do with your surveys. Or you could group them into topics which appear in a logical order. And I don't know the science or the idea of all behind it, but these are proven ways to combat this bias. First up, if you are going to be sending out a survey to customers yourself, there are various do's and don'ts to consider when compiling your questions. You should definitely know what your objective is for the survey and tell your respondents as well. When you're communicating with them, hi Sarah, we have this 2-minute survey that is trying to achieve how you feel about our X product. So you tell them exactly what the objective is of that survey. You should optimize your form, so your survey, for usability. We have spoken about this before. It's really about keeping it simple. Think about people who may be completing this survey on mobile, for example. You should also keep your questions short and to the point. And a good strategy is to offer multiple choice answers plus an optional text box. So people can choose an option from the multiple choice answers as well as provide optional feedback. And this can be a really great way to get information that you didn't actually ask for. If you can, incentivize people to complete the survey. Offer them a discount, free delivery, a free ebook, something of value to them, of course. And then use your other touch points to get answers. If you are on the phone a lot with customers, use that face-to-face, at events, etc. It's not just for digital. Moving to the don'ts. Don't ask too many questions. A survey by SurveyMonkey determined that people will stop a survey after 7 minutes, so please do bear this in mind. If you want to ask more questions, you need to try and keep the answers simpler, so yes or no. But if you are looking for more info, so more detailed responses, perhaps ask less questions, but then prompt to provide more feedback. Likewise, don't ask multiple questions in a question. For example, have you ever heard about our brand? And if so, where did you hear about us? And what was the format? That is a pretty confusing question. I think it's also very important not to keep all your questions on your brand. Ask them for details about themselves as people, because this could actually provide actionable information for marketing and content strategies, packaging and pricing, customer service, and more. Looking at some survey tools now, and these are not free, although there are free trial options mostly. First up, we have something called Typeform, and this is an incredibly cool platform. Go and check it out. It offers you lead gen opportunities. You can, of course, send surveys and quizzes. And there is an online shop feature, as in you use Typeform to enable your site to be an e-commerce site. In terms of survey designs and options, this is actually incredibly advanced, and I think for that reason it is the most expensive out of these options that we're going through, but definitely check it out. Then there is something called SurveyMonkey. We have spoken about this before. It is a simpler option. You do have free and premium versions, like I said. With the premium versions, you basically don't have to have the logo on all of them. You get access to more metrics, a higher volume of surveys that can be sent out. So it really is worth it. And then we also have Hotjar, which I have used. I've used all of them except for Typeform. Hotjar and SurveyMonkey are fantastic. Hotjar is not just a survey tool. They also provide specialized web services so that you can better understand how people interact with your site and which visual elements are being looked at most. And how they do this is by heat mapping and recording a screen, as it's navigating through. Not recording your screen, if that makes sense, but they do track the movement within your site and then can give you some incredible insights. Then really surveys on steroids is something called a brand lift survey. Brand lift surveys are specifically geared to digital marketing, with Google saying that brand lift is the direct impact your ads are having on the perception and behaviors throughout the consumer journey. A brand lift survey is really only available with TrueView video campaigns, so video specifically. How it works is that throughout the survey, a control group of people who have not seen your ads will be created. Google actually intentionally blocks these people from seeing your ads. Then the groups, so the group that didn't see your ad and the group that did, they both sent the survey and they are then compared, and you're provided with the brand lift percentage that can be attributed to your video content. This is an example of a brand lift survey. So it essentially is an ad. It runs pre-roll generally, so before the video starts, and you can skip it. You don't have to complete it, but this is just what it generally looks like. In terms of cost, the cost is free, but there are some minimum budget requirements to ensure that there is enough data. We're going to go through the options, the available objectives and questions. With first up, we have ad recall and the question that is asked. And these are predefined questions, so you can't change them. It will be up to you to provide 1 to 3 competitor names to be included in the survey. Or Google can actually provide those based on similar industries, but I would recommend sending through your own. So ad recall asks, which of these brands have you seen online video advertising for recently? Then if you're wanting to focus on awareness, the question that would be asked is, which of these brands have you heard of? If you're looking at consideration, the question is, which of these brands would you consider purchasing? Then there is favorability, and the question there is, for which of the following brands do you have a positive opinion? And then finally, you have something called purchase intent. And the question is, next time you have to choose from the following. Which one are you most likely to choose? It is harder to get feedback on purchase intent and favorability in terms of volume as well. So to make it statistically significant, as in you can trust this data. It's not too little, to base, or it's not an assumption. When it comes to results, along with the answers of the questions to the questions and the demographic and psychographic details of the respondents, and this is of course just based on what Google has on each person. Google also looks at any uplift in organic searches across search and YouTube and sees whether they can be attributed to the advertising that you're doing on YouTube. To do the survey, you need to contact a Google rep who will then set it all up for you based on the information that you have provided. A new development or recent development is Google is now allowing you to run continuous brand lift surveys. So before they were time-based or campaign-based. And you can actually also see reporting in real time. So you don't have to wait until the end of the survey to receive the results. This is called version 2.0, and with 1.0, as I mentioned, you receive the results at the end of the survey and they run for a specific period. Then we have something on Facebook, and they also have Facebook brand lift tests. There are several. You have conversions, and this is where you measure the impact your advertising has on conversion-related objectives. Brand, which is the lift of Facebook advertising for brand awareness objectives. Cross-publisher is where you can determine the lift of both your Facebook advertising and another publisher's advertising in the same test. This is referring to comparing you essentially to a similar business. Next up is digital PR. It's an evolution of traditional PR, and it has become a core part of building and maintaining brand awareness and perception. What is PR exactly? Well, it stands for public relations, and it is about managing the message of the brand that is delivered to the public and finding ways to generate positive publicity among them. The PR's job is to enhance a brand's image and do damage control when needed. So this is really, well, to simplify it maybe a bit too much, this is content advertised at scale using quite different means to what we would when it comes to marketing. So whereas traditional PR achieve their objectives by using print publications, events, radio, and fostering partnerships with people, journalists, influencers, investors, and business owners, social media has changed the way in which PR firms and people need to engage with the public. The size and instant nature of social media and the voracious way in which we consume content means a much higher reach and faster rate of things going positively or negatively. If you think about something that's gone viral, how quickly does it go viral? And how quickly are there thousands and thousands of shares before it gets to hundreds of thousands, etc.? The same kind of thing can happen with a brand. Someone complains, it's quite a significant complaint, people share it, and suddenly it has huge traction and needs to be dealt with, super urgently. Essentially, a message becomes much harder to control. Tone and authenticity are much more important than before. Digital PR relies on various channels and strategies to achieve its objectives of increasing awareness and reputation. Within content marketing, they use multiple areas, namely websites, either through buying media space or having a relationship with the business, so you can post content on there for free. Online magazine publications, partnerships with influencers, bloggers, and reporters. So that hasn't really changed. There is still a lot of, let's just say, traditional stuff that goes on when it comes to digital PR, but there just is a huge digital element now. Then, of course, we have social media, which is a fantastic way to distribute content, and then email. Then another big area that they are involved in is SEO. Now, remember that content is king in SEO. It lives on your site and is one of the main aspects of PR, so there's a natural fit, content at the end of the day. Where they would influence that, of course, would be your website. And I'm not talking about a blog post or anything like that. There are very specific things that PR covers, and we'll go into that shortly. There's also backlinks. This has a huge positive impact on SEO, especially if all the sites or publications that are linking back to your site are of a high quality, and that is part of the kind of daily grind of someone in PR. Then organic searches. So that might be a part of their directive. Essentially, they need to increase visibility of a brand's content, but with organic means, so not through paid media of any kind. Of course, things like publications or adding content to different sites may result in more organic searches, and that is the paid aspect of it. But generally, organic searches overall would be monitored for what to which articles, and then that content would be analyzed and improved upon. How does PR differ from marketing? PR is about sharing newsworthy information, so something that they know will capture the attention of the public without it being sales driven or gimmicky. So apart from booking media space online, for example, or for certain articles, they typically wouldn't be in charge of distributing that content through paid media. So that is where the difference lies. Some examples of the content that they would share would be your brand story to try and get that emotional connection with the public. It's your CSI initiatives, corporate social investment. So anything that you're doing for the greater good. Is there a charity that you're involved with? Do you donate to something regularly? This is something that PR would be interested in. It's potentially a customer leaving a review and finding out more of her story. So you take that information, you contact that customer, you get the full story, and then you blast it everywhere. For example, how did your brand change this woman's life? How did it improve things, etc. Any introduction of a new product or service line would be something that PR would handle or deal with. If you are hosting an event, that is something that they would try and get across multiple publications, of course. And generally creating or generating buzz around anything that you are doing, anything that could relate to you. For example, a lot of people have yearly plans in terms of the content that they're going to be sending out. Just because in this industry, there's certain notice, or quite a big notice, that you have to give if you're going to be booking a certain space or something like that. So you have a yearly plan, and let's just say you are a company for women. Very simple example. Women's Month is something that you would perhaps want to do something around. So PR would get involved there. They'd find out what kind of angle you could take to make it newsworthy, and then you would go on from there. If someone is at the point where they're not able to hire an agency to do their PR, there's something called DIY PR. It might not be as effective sometimes, but there are options. You need to use your network, become an influencer or a thought leader. I know it's not as simple as a bullet point, but that is an option. Connect with people that you know online and offline. Chances are that some people are in the same boat as you, and you can actually help each other out. And there may be others who can offer you leads or at least valuable advice. Keep on top of trends in your industry and write content around them. Fast, of course, trends come and go. Call your local radio station if you're running an event. That is something that they are generally quite happy to give some airtime to, as a local radio station. Encourage your customers to leave reviews and incentivize them if possible. Reviews, or leaving reviews, is a huge factor when it comes to perception and reputation. Coming to our last topic of the day, which is social listening and monitoring. This is a big part of digital PR as well as overall strategy. Social listening is about analyzing brand keywords and related keywords, as well as topics and industries. The reason why you want to do this is because you want, or you need, to see the discussions and feedback around your brand and analyze these findings to then influence your communication, your targeting, your voice, and any number of things. Then there is social monitoring, which can also be called community management. And this is where you get feedback and ideas from communicating directly with your customers. You offer support for followers and customers. You boost perception and reputation with a quick turnaround time because it's so public. Everyone is seeing all the comments as well as your responses. And of course, it can increase sales and leads. If your customers feel like they're being looked after, they'll become more loyal, they will buy more. So that is why it's important. This does come with risks. Being active on a channel really does open you up to negative feedback. But the idea is that as a brand, you want to be seeing that feedback and at least being part of the discussion, as opposed to not being aware of it at all. Even though it is negative, how you respond and deal with that situation can actually turn it around and make it a really positive story. You're setting expectations for your customers. Let's say that you have a Twitter account and that is your main customer service platform. So people tweet you and DM you their experiences of your brand. If you start doing this really well, then they will, of course, expect you to continue doing it well. So anything that you decide to do in terms of opening yourself up to a social media channel, especially if you haven't been there before, needs to be considered very carefully. But generally, I wouldn't say there's any case that you shouldn't have a presence there. There is also the risk of responding incorrectly if brand tone and voice is not clear. This can be a responsibility that either lies on the brand side for not being clear enough, not having a brand Bible in place, or it could be if you're outsourcing your community management and you have various people responding, they might not all be aware of what the tone is, and that can go a bit wrong sometimes. Looking at some community management tools, you can, of course, manage your social media presence on the native platform, so on the Twitter platform, on the Facebook platform, etc. But when you have several profiles, as well as, let's say, 10,000 people following you, you might want to look at some tools to help you. First up is Sprout Social. This offers you analytics, so you can get metrics on all the different platforms. With engagement, what this does is it essentially pulls all of the different mentions of you into one inbox. So you're not missing anything. You can deal with it via one inbox on their dashboard. There is also a publishing feature, so you can plan, create, and deliver that content through the Sprout Social platform. And then there is social media listening as well. So it's a social media monitoring and listening tool. There is a free trial, but then it starts from $149 per month. It is on the high end of the scale when it comes to a tool like this. So then we have HubSpot, and HubSpot is also fantastic. They are a content publisher, so you can do the same thing as Sprout. You can create campaigns within HubSpot, and there are a range of additional tools with HubSpot in general, as there are with Sprout. But we're just sticking to social media for now. There is scheduling, so you can schedule your posts so you don't have to worry about that, if you're busy or something's happening. And then social listening as well. The starter options are from $50 a month, so you can see there's quite a major price difference between HubSpot and Sprout. Although I need to specify this is a starter option, so you would only have one user, but I think it starts from 10 different social media profiles. Then there is Hootsuite, which I have worked with quite extensively. You can schedule things here. Monitoring is of course an option. Content curation, analytics, so they provide analytics on your social data, and you can create campaigns. The starter options are from $29 a month, so that is something to look at if your budget is quite low. Huge congratulations on completing lesson 2. Well done. Thank you guys so much. I will see you very soon for lesson 3. Bye.